Hello everyone. We're going to do something a little bit different in this video. We're going to talk about some techniques and some planning strategies for writing, but we're going to do it in the form of a comic strip. I enjoy comic strips. Hopefully most of you do as well. We're going to comic strip write. We're going to make a comic strip. Like I said, a lot of the prep work that's going to go into this is the same that you would use to write any kind of story, any kind of narrative. We just get to draw at the end. Now for me, when we're doing comic strips, I know some people like to draw, some people don't. So if you're not a big fan of drawing, please don't worry. I'm not grading you on your art or anything like that, other than obviously I need to make sure you're making an effort. No stick people, please. I'm mostly going to be focusing on the story. I'm mostly going to be focusing on how you structure your narrative. That's what makes this a writing activity. Now for our planning page, you're going to take a piece of line paper, make sure you've got your name, number at the top, make sure you have this title, comic strip planning page. We're going to use this one sheet of paper to create our comic, well, to plan it anyway. Let's start by folding the paper in half. I'm going to fold it like this, a little hard to see on the camera probably, okay, the old hamburger fold, basically because the top half of the paper is going to be for one part of our planning, and the bottom half, beneath the line, is going to be for our next step. Oop, there goes the bell. Always love that when I'm making a video. Let's go ahead and take a look for this lesson just at what we're going to be doing on the top. Okay. Every story is a little bit different, but most stories, most narratives have a few things in common, a few important pieces. One of the most, if not the most important pieces is the character or characters in the story. Now for right at this point in the lesson, you may have a pretty good idea of the character you would like to write about, you might not. I'm not looking for one solid answer here. I want you to brainstorm. I want you to think of as many different kinds of characters as you can that you might enjoy reading about. You're going to be writing, but think of it as a reader too. Who would people enjoy reading about? Okay. Now, we're going to stay away from pre-existing characters. I don't want to pull characters out of stories. Okay. But if I know that I would like to write about Spider-Man, instead of saying Spider-Man, just put a superhero. Okay. We're not going to write about Godzilla, but if you want to write about a giant monster, that would be fun. Okay. So start maybe by thinking about the kinds of characters you already enjoy. Again, don't just put, Scooby-Doo. Put talking dog. All right. And you're going to come up with as many of these as you can. Okay. So superheroes, giant monsters. What else does Mr. Landre like? Could write about aliens, dinosaurs. Mr. Landre tends to go towards the crazy and fantastic, but you can write about things that are much more grounded, much more realistic. Okay. Write about yourself if you want. You could be the star of your comic. Okay. You can include friends if you like, but I need to stress, if you are using real people, you need to be kind. Any mean depiction of a real person, really, let's not be mean at all, but especially if it's a real person, I will not accept that comic strip. But let's say you don't want to write about yourself or your friends, but you still want to be more realistic. Start thinking about maybe jobs and professions that people have. That can be a way to kind of guide your thinking too. A doctor, or an artist, or a firefighter. Okay. Comic strips can be funny. They can be outrageous and unrealistic, but they can also be very down to earth. They can be very grounded. They can be very real. So think of the different kinds of characters you would want to write. You see I've got about 3 lines here. That's a pretty good start. Go ahead and pause the video, do 3 lines of characters, and then start back up again. Okay. I'm going to hope that if you're still playing the video that you have a pretty good list of characters. I don't want you copying all of mine. You can take a couple of mine, but these are mostly just there to get you started. I'm going to skip a line. Okay. Now, characters in the story obviously are important, and you will read some stories where characters are just kind of randomly walking around doing whatever, but we're going to be a little more specific than that. Most stories, whether they're books, TV shows, movies, have some kind of problem that the characters are trying to solve, or some kind of goal that they're trying to reach. Okay. In movie making, I've heard this goal is referred to as called a Macguffin. Just something to get the story going, something that the characters are looking for, trying to find, trying to do. Okay. Now, the goal can be something simple, or it can be something kind of out there, kind of, unusual. Okay. Again, if you think about, what would my goal be in a story? Okay. Maybe I'm trying to get a new action figure. Pretty basic. Okay. Maybe your character gets lost and needs to find their way home. Okay. Maybe they're looking for some kind of treasure, and you can figure out what that treasure would be. Maybe they're looking for a new animal. Again, it can be just about anything. Think of the kinds of stories that you enjoy. Okay? Looking at some popular movies. If you think back to the first Toy Story, there are a lot of problems and goals in that movie. You could come up with a few, but I would say the main goal is Woody and Buzz are trying to get home. Okay? Most of what happens, they end up at Pizza Planet, they end up at Sid's. All these different things that happen are on their way to get home. That's their ultimate goal. What is your character's ultimate goal going to be? And if you haven't decided on a final character yet, don't worry about it, but taking a look at some of these can kind of guide you. A superhero would kind of, defeat the villain. Okay, or save the day in general. Giant monster would want to, destroy the city, I guess. I'm not sure if I should be asking you to do that. These are fictional. They're going to be silly. Well, they can be silly. Okay? Just make sure it's school appropriate, whatever your problem goal is. Just like before, in a moment, I'm going to ask you to pause, fill in about 3 lines worth, and then continue the video. All right? Hopefully you've got some good goals. Okay? We're just coming up with a list. Again, it can be something simple like get a new toy or eat a taco, or it can be something big like defeat a villain, destroy a city. Ugh, maybe not that one. Okay. Our last part of this for today. Our last section. We want to think about setting. Okay. Setting is where a story takes place. Could also be when a story takes place. But usually we start with the where. We start with the location. Okay? And again, it can be something real. School. A store. Okay? Or it can be a little more unusual. A little less realistic. I guess On the Moon could technically be a real story. But something like in a monster's belly, probably not. Okay. At a concert. Just, again, where have you seen movies take place? Where are places that you've been? National park, maybe? Or a theme park? Okay. Where are places that you've been? Where are places that you would like to go? Now, if you want to get a little more challenging, setting can also include when a story takes place, time period. So you could also do something like, 65 million years ago. 65 million years before the Common Era. Or during the Revolutionary War. Okay. Revolutionary War. I can spell that. There we go. Just, again, you're listing out as many as you can. Okay? You should see we're getting pretty close to the halfway point. I don't really want to go down below the line. Like I said, I'm going to use that for something in our next activity. But what we've done, we've brainstormed, we've come up with some interesting things we'd like to write about, and now we can start putting the pieces together to decide what our comic strip is going to be. Okay. Do you want to write a story about yourself trying to eat a taco at school? That could be a pretty realistic story. How are you going to get a taco when you're at school? I don't know. Maybe they have tacos at lunch. Who knows? Perhaps you would rather be a giant monster trying to eat a taco on the moon. Or a firefighter trying to find their way home in a national park. Okay, that could be a more realistic story. Or what if you're an alien trying to find treasure in the year 65 million BCE? So during dinosaur times. Again, you're going to pick one from each, put them together, and just see what sounds fun. What would be fun to write about? What would be fun to draw? What would be comfortable to draw? If you feel like you want to add something else in, you can. Don't worry about taking things out. Eventually, what you're going to do is, after you've gone through a few combinations like I just did, you're going to go ahead and pick your one favorite from each. And you're going to circle your one favorite from each. Now again, as you're going through, you may think, oh, you know what? Ooh, I want to write about my pet rock, Dwayne. So you may want to add something on there. Okay. Dwayne likes to skateboard. It's okay if you want to add a couple things. But when you're finished with this, you want to circle one character, one goal, and one setting. Because that is where we are going to start building from next time. That's it for this lesson. Please make sure that you have this complete, because when we continue down below, we're going to start mapping out what our comic strip is going to look like. All right. Thanks, everybody. I will see you in class.